We've got another guest episode today, the owner and host of the Push Pull Legs podcast.
Yeah, we've had lots of cool guests. Ross Edgley, Amelia, Mike McDonald, all that kind of crap. What? My whole motto is train for something.
Do people come to you with Hyrox goals? I'm assuming that's quite big at the moment.
Be a decent fucking runner, and then you can probably muscle your way through most of the stuff. I superset. Don't care who you are. I never write one exercise. Never.
I've not used a Whoop before, but what do you think of them? Decent?
No, because I'm not wearing it.
What is one piece of advice you wish you knew sooner?
I'll go one-to-one because there's fucking enough online advice from you, Bellans.
In the morning, I'll have fish and a rice cake.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fish and a Rice Cake for another episode. I'm Jake. As ever, he is Jake as well. And we've got another guest episode today, and a big guest as well. The owner and host of the Push Pull Legs podcast with, I believe, I did count because I'm that sad, around 392 episodes, which is pretty nuts.
So
to be fair.
somewhere around that.
Yeah. But performance coach, educator, single-handedly taking down the bodybuilding world, one hand clean at a time, which I thought was pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, I like it.
Mr. Tom Hall. But mate, thank you for coming on the podcast with us both. Hope you're doing good.
I'm all well, thank you. Thank you for having me. The
Pleasure.
general niceties.
Pleasure. But yeah, do you want to kick us off with just, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, just a little bit of an introduction about yourself, mate?
I think you fucking covered it, mate. Yeah. Unfortunately, I am best mates with obviously Daniel of Biceps and Banger.
Yeah.
Since how long we've been best mates? Like 10 years, maybe.
Too long.
Unfortunately, yeah, and we've been doing a podcast together. And literally, the only reason we started that podcast was to keep in contact because he moved away, and we have almost done it religiously ever since. And weirdly, people listen week on week to our absolute garbage. We also hit the podcasting world when it was big, I feel, and then it's creeping back up now again over the last year. I feel like it took a little dip and then it's gone up. So yeah, if anybody hasn't listened to that, we've had over 600,000 downloads or something like that. So in lifetime. So we've obviously peaked in the middle when we were putting a lot of effort into it, and then we dropped off a little bit, and then it'll just if we decide to put an effort, it's good. But yeah, we've had lots of cool guests: Ross Edgley, Amelia, Mike McDonald, all that kind of crap. You can kind of go look at those. PT wise, geez, let's just do current stuff because I feel like that's, like I've been in the industry since I'm 33 now, so I left football. I was in professional football. Did my bachelor's degree, did my master's degree, biomechanics, S&C, boring, and then went to work for Brentford Football Club. Realised you get paid nothing, guys. If you're listening to this and you want to work in football, do it for the love, not for the money. And
pretty similar route to Dan, really, isn't it? Like pretty similar.
100%. I think that's probably why we hit it off. We're just like, we've got really similar stories in terms of what we like doing. I think I resonate with coaching more. I like being around people more than Dan. But yeah, so I haven't dipped out of one-to-one. So I've still got I'd say good, decent one-to-one business, which I run out of a place called Until in, if you know where Selfridges is in London, literally next to that, which I believe I've met Steven Bartlett a few times now because he is the co-owner now of that company. So it's quite cool. He didn't enjoy one of my jokes when I let him in the door. So
what did you do?
But like we had like we got invited to this opening like night thing, right? So a few of us, like I think 20 of the people that they were putting in, and then he was coming in, but the door was locked. And then I was on the other side, like talking to the receptionist at the time. And then he couldn't open the door. So I went to open it and I was like, have you got a ticket? And he just looked at me like I was deaf. And I was like, great, I'm not getting funding from you if I want it.
He won't be coming on the podcast then.
And I was like, Divers Heroes doing a little bit better than my podcast, so we're right. Yeah, so that's like Tom Hall, just PT, stuff like that. So mainly, I kind of work with anybody, if I'm really honest, in the world of one-to-one coaching. But then I think mainly my guys have been given to me from physiotherapists, more than likely. So I have that kind of route, and I generally will rehab them back into sport or rehab them back into whatever. And then it becomes more of their life, which is cool. And then obviously Educator was now not anymore out of that in terms of the PTC. So Personal Trainer Collective, qualifying, educating personal trainers.
I was going to ask you about that. So what actually was the gig there? So was it new personal trainers or was it current PTs and kind of leveling them up potentially? Or?
So Luke Johnson, the former owner of what is it? Shredded by Science is what people probably know him a little bit more for. No idea why he stopped that brand. No idea. I kept on trying to say, do it again, do it again.
It's a great brand.
It's a fucking great brand. Correct. He killed a cash cow. And then like the PTC went up. So I was a consultant. I came in and took a little bit of ownership, took a little bit of this, and then was like, all right. Because he basically just came to me. He was like, I want to make a course for personal trainers when they just qualified to run a business and be good. So we set out like the PT core course, which I'd still stand by is probably the course to do in the industry because I wrote it. And but if you're a personal trainer from like just past the 6 months and then get a little bit lost, do that. And that will see you through to like 18 months. You will build a business if you do it, and you will train people properly. And it's very much about
stuff as well as training clients.
Correct. Yeah. We covered both.
Which you don't learn in your fucking
both portions. Yeah. We literally actually covered proper programming, proper fucking like sequencing of like progressions, regressions of everything. And then we also talked about onboarding someone, how to set up your Go Cardless or your Stripe, how to do this on your Calendly. They're like, what? Yeah, it's insane, I know. But where you have a Google folder for someone. Yeah, we did all that kind of business. But it was a good course. And then we had a bunch of upskilling basically stuff. But we did take people from new. Like if you wanted to become a personal trainer, you could do level 2 and level 3 with us. Okay. So I think some people were very shocked that I was teaching level 2 and level 3, like to coaches. I'd turn up on their day. They're like, you? I was like, yeah, it's cool. I like teaching, so I do love it. But there was also that kind of thing. Like, so for the whole of lockdown, right? So we recorded, I dread to think how many like lectures, 1,000 maybe, in a gym and stuff. So that was doing the level 2, the level 3, and the PT core. It took 2 years of my life. So that was long but good. And then now, one-to-one PT, and then I have a company called Combine Coaching, which is my online based coaching. So that's probably what people see more online, which is very much against my big against is the world of bodybuilding, which everybody knows is a marketing thing. You got to stand against something, right? Online, otherwise you stand for nothing. So against bodybuilding or just sheer boredom. My whole motto is train for something. That's why I created something called Combine, okay? Which people would have probably realized that, like, hey, they do that in the NFL, or they do that in like American football or American sports, right?
Are you a NFL fan? Is that where the name came from?
100%. So they do like the Combine in all of them, but I didn't think it's not like, I know, copyrighted to them. I think they just put it on. I don't think it is. I was like, is it? I was like, I'm not probably going to be as big as the NFL.
I don't think
they can pay me to go away. We'll be all right. But it was also like, it was born out of, obviously there's like lots of tests and performance tests that people do, probably more so from school. Past that, I reckon 95%, even the people who train don't do them ever again. And I was like, I teach this. So I used to be a part of a company called Third Space.
They're a big gym brand. So there's quite a few in London. Is that right? Is it London?
Yeah, they're like getting up towards like 10, 11 in London. I think they're trying to go towards like 20, 25. But I left because I did do a podcast episode on this, I think, why I left, because I no longer aligned with what they were doing. Kind of a big company, really fast growing, but not growing in the way that I wanted to myself. So it was just like, cutting corners in terms of coaching and stuff like that and fitness. And I was just like, this isn't for me anymore. Thanks. But no thanks. Yeah, that's all right. I'll leave. I'll walk around the corner. We're all good. I'll stay quiet for 6 months. I wasn't training my clients. No. It's like, it's fine.
So obviously that's kind of led you to, I think you're doing a lot more online now. So kind of talk us through a little bit, because I'm interested in this. I mentioned to you before, like your content's kind of grabbed my attention a little bit recently, and so,
good, it's working.
Yeah, it's working. But so talk us through what it is that you do. So you test people, and then what do people come to you with? Hyrox goals, I'm assuming that's quite big at the moment, to perform better in that? Or is it literally kind of just people wanting to perform better on a day-to-day basis? So is it for events, or is it a bit of everything?
I'd say online, it's certainly the angle I've taken over the last probably 3 months. I have had quite a few Hyroxy people. So I probably got near like 8, 9 on my books that are just competing in Hyrox now. Hyrox seems like a thing that most people can achieve as well, because there's no real like skill acquisition elements to it. It's like, be a decent fucking runner and then you can probably muscle your way through most of the stuff. If I'm really from a technical S&C point, CrossFit obviously tried to do it, and obviously CrossFit boxes are still popular, but like probably most of them run at a loss, and they're not that great. They're good communities, but they're really hard to make money. But you also have to teach like Olympic lifting. It's a whole fucking sport, like Jesus Christ. And in the S&C world, I sit on the side of on the camp like I don't teach it to athletes because the skill acquired wastes my fucking time, and the chances are I can do something better. All I really wanted is something like I want to achieve triple extension when I'm doing that stuff. So no point. My normal client journey, really simple. I think if anybody's like a coach that's listening to this, really simple. Have this first month set out. If you don't, then do it now. So it's really easy just to go. They'll like if somebody comes to me, I'll be like, all right, cool. What are you training for? What do you want to train for? If there's nothing, but even if there isn't anything, they're still going to do a testing week, probably in the first month. And it does depend on, actually it doesn't. I'm just trying to look, I'm looking through my list of when people have tested. And I'm like, I think even if they're the most trained person I've had, it's probably on week 3 to 4. They will test. Mainly because I need week 1, I need filming done of like how they come on and how they're performing, what they do. If they've got specific like sports they play, then I'll write in a couple of lists that they have to film because there'll be certain key like issues that they have. So I put up a reel about Paul Ellis, who is a cricketer, like a decent cricketer, and now he plays rugby as well. So I needed to see, so in cricket, there's a lot of rotational movement. So I was like, all right, probably need to see this. I probably need to see this. But then there's a lot of like foundational stuff. And then they do 2 weeks of just pure adherence work. Like I need to know that they hit these really billy fucking basic lifts, what I would deem as basic. Okay. So it's like a general prep kind of program. And it shouldn't be like testing at all. It should be like, all right, I've completed all of my work, Tom. Thank you. And I'm like, amazing, cool. Now you've reached level 2. Cool. All right, you've got my attention that you can follow orders, you can do that kind of stuff, and you see the benefit of just doing like ticking a box. But it's still going to be tough. But then you enter the world of the combine stuff. So I'll generally run like a general combine first, and then it becomes more specific based off the first results. Because those results, I would argue, if somebody's not testing, they're kind of guessing where you need to go in their next like month plan, right? So it really depends on. So I've got 15 different tests split up into strength stuff, then I've got 2 bits of power. The Hyrox guys don't always do all of it because it's not that applicable, but I've got vertical power and horizontal power. And then you got strength endurance. Then we have just some energy system development stuff. So cardio, anaerobics stuff. Okay. And based off those results, I know exactly where I want to take you for your next phase. But if I don't get those results, I'm kind of winging it a little bit. And I'm like, it's fine to a certain degree, but we want to feel like we're working towards something, as far as I'm concerned.
So if somebody doesn't have an event, so someone doesn't have a Hyrox or they're not an athlete, quote unquote, so I suppose the goal is to improve on what you tested initially then. So you can always kind of manufacture those performance-related goals through the tests initially. And then how often do you retest?
This is dependent. I've tried to do it every quarter, but I've recently pushed it to every 4 months just because of life gets in the way for people. And then I allow 2 weeks for a week testing. Again, people might get fatigued, they're like not got their A game, stuff like that. Because in theory, there's 3 to 4 testing days. I wouldn't do that in an athletic like position with a pro team. I wouldn't do all that testing in 1 week. So I spread it over 2. Then it's like, all right, you've got 4 testing days, but then you've also got like dicking around days. If you want to do that, like fuck off and do that. I don't really mind. Or don't train. Bring it. So yeah, that's, I would say, so the every quarter for me was the first thing because that's what we used to do in professional football. And that's what we do in pro sport most of the time. We do it every quarter, but we base it off their, like where they're like got their big events. And if they haven't got big events to peak for, we test instead. So we peak for that slightly. So we do a mini peak and be like, all right, let's nail it. And then we come back down again.
Paper into it,
So, but I think for the most of the population, doing a week's worth of tests would every 4 months would be fucking fantastic for guidance. Then you get to go, cool, what do I need to work on?
Yeah. Okay, what's good?
And then you see in professional football, you do all that testing and then the skills coaches pay no attention to it anyway and just do their own thing. So you're like, well, what's the point?
Like the world of football is just barbaric sometimes. We're like, oh, can that person not play? Please? We don't think they're ready.
Stories, and it's like, I think was it Steve Bruce who was the manager at one of the clubs he was at? Yeah, Steve Bruce, and he was like, he had his right-hand man and Dan was like, based on everything, all the data we have, these players should not play this match at the weekend. And he turned around to his right man, he's like, can they play? And he was like, yeah. He's like, what's the fucking point? Why am I here?
We're like, there's certain bits of it I'm just like, can you just listen to the guidance like 95% of the time? If there's the one-off, like I've heard some stories, it might have been Harry Redknapp, something like that. Basically you have managers day, and basically the sports scientists just get put to the side and they do what the fuck they like with them. And it's just like running like laps and like intervals and all this shit. And then like for the one thing, like Harry Redknapp will turn around and be like, see, they could play, they can push more. And we're like, yeah, but you just fucked their CNS for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Congrats. I'm like, okay, cool. I think when people have football, this like higher esteem, and then you just realize every other sport is so far ahead of it.
Especially NFL. That seems to be miles ahead of it.
Oh yeah, well the weird thing as well, like so American sports have a kind of a rep count on how much time they can spend in with their team facilities. Yeah. So they can't like spend the whole season or the off season with their S&C coaches from the team. So they have to go to like these private facilities, which is where like Mike Boyle S&C like came out, and Eric Crazy Performance and all these really amazing center, Mike Robertson's like performance center, all these really cool places. I've been lucky enough to go to a few of them, and they just run so much fucking better over there than they are here. It's madness. I struggle to see or like have found a place that run like a Mike Boyle strength and conditioning center. It's just so well done. I guess they got the space is the issue, but yeah, and the pro teams that come and do it.
How would just a one-off program from you look compared to just your standard gym-based plan?
I'd say pretty different.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would say, fuck, that's so weird, like how you've set it out, or that's not what I would do. But obviously I'm built from the world of S&C. So my whole thing is about getting people performing and stronger. And like the NFL, like if you end up looking like an NFL guy, the aesthetics are probably taking care of themselves, really. Yeah. Okay. But we're not looking at those guys and going, a bit fat, fucking hell, recently now. Like, that's what I don't get. And I'm just like, all right, we can trade for aesthetics all we like, but you're going to get that as a byproduct. Like the cricketer lad I put up, he looks pretty fucking shredded. And I was just like, we don't do any of that shit. Like we just lift for strength. So I'll go through like a general session because they all tend to have a very similar format. They might deviate a little bit. So I know on one of my stories, I'm just going to say Jake messaged me about like talking about a couple of the Hyrox guys. I think Clara and Alex are doing something called triphasic training at the moment, and that's a little bit different, but it'll be very specific in terms of what they need to basically put them through torture. But generally, right, and then to start with, so I'm big on time blocking, okay? Because everybody likes to know a timeline of what they should be doing and how long stuff should take, because that's how we decide to do what we're doing later in the day. So most of my things will say like, all right, so the top bit is always a mobility work, so floor mobility, and I will literally write like 5 to 8 minutes. Don't want any more than that. Like crack on. Like if you're spending longer than that, then you're doing something wrong. And it might be, so I might have like 2 things to do, and it will literally be like 2 times 10. That's it. So floor mobility work, and that will tend to be T-spine work. You've got 2 things that you have to do, prerequisites, is T-spine work and hip base work, because those unlock. T-spine unlocks the upper body, and then hip base basically unlocks the lower body. Okay, those are prerequisites. If there's something specific and personal to you, that will go in there as well. So say one of you came to me with like, all right, I've got knee tendinopathy or something like that. Like, all right, cool. We need to possibly flex or floss the knee or something like that. Okay. Then that moves, after a couple of sets of that will move into something called movement preparation. So people are thinking like, oh, you're still doing your warm up. Nah, these are done with like slightly elevated intent. My warm up will be most people's workout. Okay, that warm up at the bit, the 5 to 8 minutes of like mobility work, that's what they would deem as warm up. And then I start movement prep where I'm starting to stress somebody's intent a little bit more. Okay, so that would be basic like body weight stuff, split squats, moving the hips around, starting to load them, push back, push ups. Probably there's like some things that never go right. So there's like high knee grabs into falling lunges, and then into like curtsy lunges or lateral lunges, and then probably some sort of kettlebell swing. Get hips moving, and then there'll probably be some sort of pull movement or a push movement. Okay, just big bang for buck things. I'm not a mini band fan. unfortunately. I feel like it's born out of, I need to feel this muscle for it to be working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that muscle controls, let's say the most mini band, like people are like, all right, I need to spark on my glutes. Yet they're doing mainly like hip abduction work.
Yeah.
I'm like, glute max mainly a like flexor and extensor, right? It mainly does that stuff. So I'm like, all right, you're going to spark up glute med. Cool. If you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. There is definitely a need for it, but there's always like all right, well, there is that other stuff that we can do. So then it's movement prep done. So tick box. And then you move into, I would have my speed, power, velocity section. Okay. So somebody's this is like, people are like, oh, you put that so early. Yeah. Because I need to hit you with speed or power when you're most fresh, because I need you to move fucking quickly. Okay. If you're doing it at the back end of your session, doing it wrong. Okay. You are not moving as fast as you possibly can at the bottom of the session. So this might be my plyometric jumps, vertical jumps, horizontal jumps, depending on whether you're deadlifting or you're doing single leg work, or you're doing like squat based work. And then there'll be some sort of probably med ball work, which is like throws, rotations. Yeah. I have a few golfers I work with. That tends to be the thing that they like doing because it looks like a golf swing. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Still I find with golf, like when I see kind of golf creators online, everything's just with a rotation.
It's so annoying as well. And the research dictates like doing vertical jump training increases people's speed of swing more. And I'm like, do that, do both. But do that more.
Yeah, at least do that.
Like, do that bit, then do that bit. Because my whole argument is like, they're probably swinging their club a lot. I'm like, they probably are good at that bit. We need to get them stronger, number one, and then we'll get them more powerful. So we got velocity, power section. That might be where my start, maybe loaded jumps might be put in there, depends on the intensity. Then we move into what would be like the big strength section. So we've got AE exercises, and this was a big shock, I think, to some of the bodybuilders I've taken on. And I just remember we had Holly Davidge on the show, and I was like, I superset, don't care who you are. I always superset. I never write one exercise, never. Because there's always, I feel like the resting is dead time in my eyes, and you could be doing a non-competing based exercise, right? Yeah. So anybody listen to that, like non-competing just means probably your dumbbell seated shoulder press doesn't compete with your like trap bar, like deadlift. Yeah. Probably at our level, they will not have an effect on each other. No doubt. Okay. So you can pair them together to be like a time saver more than anything else. And it also keeps your like heart rate elevated, and suddenly our conditioning is like a little bit easier over time because we're able to react off our heart rates better. Because you've got to think like in sport, like rugby guys, I need their heart rate like higher for like a longer amount of time. The ability to work and be under stress for that amount of time is probably good, not peaking heart rate and then dropping massively like a powerlifter. Yeah. Don't need to train like that. Okay. It's not about max strength. It's about producing force over and over and over again for some of those guys. Yeah. So big strength work, probably be like A's, A1-2 or A1-2-3. The 3 might be a resilience-based exercise. I say resilience because I don't like using the word core because it insinuates I'm gonna do my abs. It meant that mainly is like either carry work, holding something fucking heavy, or like anti-rotation, anti-flexion, all that kind of fun stuff, which in layman terms is like a Pallof press or something fancier than that. And then lastly, I do pump work. Happy with that, like some of my sessions. So some on like high low days, so they'll do like just absolute garbage volume. I'm cool with that. It's fine. Exactly. It's just like, all right, because one of the ethos is like train your lower body to be as athletic as fuck. Upper body's gonna get a massive pump. I'm like, cool. That's what most guys would probably want to do, I'd imagine. And then lastly, there's something called ESD, which is like energy system development. It's probably the thing that everybody skips out on. I know, 100%. Because I think the first time I ran like my group coaching, right? So basically, you get these plans for like 10 weeks. You test, run 2 like phases, and then test again. And across the board, everybody's energy system development, so their conditioning, didn't improve. And I was like, and then one of the lads wrote to me, he was like, because we didn't fucking do it. I was like, fuck's sake. There's like basically that's like your, I don't know, 10 on, 20 off, or like like
the cardio,
like that. The cardio, let's call it, anaerobic, because like there's a whole like batch of it. It's done so like, I don't want to say badly, but misunderstood across the industry for what people want to achieve, and they tend to do like interval training with too shorter rest times. Most people, just again, it's probably a time saver, and they end up feeling absolutely hideous. But there's like this. You're meant, say if you're doing like a 10 seconds max effort, I want to die on an assault bike as hard as you can. You're meant to be like resting for probably 6 to 8 times of what you've worked. And then, but that doesn't happen, right? If I do 10 seconds work and I say, Jake, you're going to rest for 1 minute 20 now, you'd be like, what? Like, that's fucking ages. I'm like, I've got stuff to do, mate. But I'm like, take 10 minutes out and do it properly. And then you'll realize CNS fatigue, not kind of, and you'll be able to keep that like repetitive alactate stuff going. So that was a very long-winded way of how I do my session.
It's interesting to hear. And do you get, because obviously you get a lot of people coming from a generic gym background, like bodybuilders, etc. I mean, listen, the chances are if they're coming to you, they're expecting to mix things up anyway. But do you still find there's sometimes a little bit of friction? Like, what the fuck's
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite happy to say I coach Amelia, who was a very good bodybuilder, or like has always been in that, and she's in her 30s, obviously. Probably the case of like some of the girls who come to me, right? They still want to train a lot of glute-based work, 100%. And then, but when I assess them, their anterior chain is not up to scratch. I feel like you're fucking strong as fuck, like posteriorly, really cool, well done. But I need to elevate this for you to function as a normal human for the rest of your life. So, and to you to be able to run after your kids or run after your niece and nephew and do all that kind of stuff that you want to go do now, instead of being like, I can hip thrust 200 kilos, Tom. I'm like, cool, but like, you can't goblet squat 20. Like, what the fuck's going on? I need this to be done as well. So it's all about like, I just want to make people in a rounder kind of athletic kind of point of view, so they can like drop and just do anything. I think that's the whole point. It's just like, all right, cool. I'm going to go play 5-a-side tonight. I'm going to be a little bit sore, but I'm not going to worry about getting injured.
Yeah, and I assume that like, you know, people coming from a more bodybuilding background into this sort of performance-based specifics, like over time, I would imagine you'd see a much more improved like mental health relationship with themselves, with food, with training, with everything, because we all know that like to the extreme of bodybuilding, there's a lot of issues in that industry, isn't there, with people?
I've got written on my board, and I show it to like a few of the bodybuilders. I'm like, get 80% done. And I'm like, they're like, because a few of them they've also been like psychologists as well. I think Clara comes to mind, and she's like a sports psychologist up north as well, but also previous bodybuilder, now Hyroxer. And she's like, that stuck with me. It's just like, get 80% done, 8% of the week. You're probably ahead of most people, I think. And that's probably the most of your stuff done. And like relationship with exercise, food, stuff like that, being able to leave something in the tank as well and just walk out the gym. From bodybuilder's point of view, it's like, I'm going to fuck that muscle up, right? And I'm like, it's going to die and I'm going to hate it, and like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, I want you to perform tomorrow. Like, we're training like 4 times this week. They're like, what? Like, lots of different intensities, but I need you to do that because that's what our sport dictates. So I don't want you to feel like something's just gone and then I can't train it again for 72 hours. So that's the whole point as well. So you just do lots of varying, like, I guess in the body, I know sports science terms, undulation. I write high low. It's easy to understand.
It definitely seems like Hyrox and CrossFit as well, and that kind of training, performance-based training, is massively on the up and up at the minute. And bodybuilding definitely seems to be going the opposite way after being sort of glamorized on socials for the past 4 or 5 years and having a big spike. Definitely seems to be dropping off a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say so. I think CrossFit's had its day. I think Hyrox has smashed it in terms of marketing, community, what it's about, and how simple it is. All the stuff is simple.
It feels like, for me, Hyrox feels like it's got a lower entry level.
It's more accessible, isn't it?
More accessible.
And with the paired events as well.
And and it's like, CrossFit, like, listen, I've done CrossFit myself, I've dabbled in it and things, but it can feel a bit clicky. I don't know, you just kind of like, and there isn't that with Hyrox yet, certainly, which is quite cool to see as well.
You don't get that with bodybuilding at all. You don't get clicks.
Nah.
I was going to say, there seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment, which is obviously, if you go on to, I don't know, obviously it depends on what you're looking at, but certainly my Explore page is full of hybrid athletes, right? There seems to be a lot of this. Now, I mean, I think it's great because I think it shows that people are getting out of their comfort zone. It isn't just weightlifting anymore. People are doing running, people are trying different things, Hyrox, etc., etc. But you know, as we're seeing with you, there's a lot to it, right? So if you're a bodybuilder or you're someone who is, you know, you're used to that style of training, you're carrying a lot of muscle tissue, and all of a sudden you just start running without any real plan, any real kind of like plan of action as to what you're trying to achieve, or go into a Hyrox.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just doing the two, is it? You know, there has to be theory behind it. There has to be a well thought out program there. So I see like a lot of bodybuilders now just like, right, I want to run as well. I want to do 5Ks. I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, that's fine. But I tend to see people go straight for PBs in 5Ks and 10Ks. And I'm like, are you doing zone 2 work? Which I know again is a buzzword at the moment, but this is the kind of stuff that people need to be building up in the background. Am I making sense there?
You are making sense, yeah. There's one lad. So I'm doing, I guess I'm a fucking hybrid athlete.
Yeah.
If that's what you call me. But because I'm doing triathlons this year, right? Mainly through peer pressure. And so my ramp up is towards a 70.3, so a half Ironman in October. There's quite, obviously I've dipped and getting a lot of like triathlon based content now. And there's some other people that are like doing a similar thing, but it'd be like bodybuilders that are like, all right, got my gym work. And they're like, squats and leg extensions done. I'm like, what? I'm hoping you did more in your session and you're just showing this little bit. And I'm like, now I'm off for my 20K run. I'm like, what? No.
Yeah.
Please, you're gonna like. I don't care if you do it. I don't care who you are. But I'm just like, if other people start doing that or like get the impetus and they're thinking that's fine, I just know in 3 months there's going to be some fucking obliterated Achilles tendons and stuff that's going out there, and I'll be like, maybe we need some. This is where the resilience work comes in because it applies to like all that kind of stuff. So there is a little bit to it. I guess the S&C world, we just do a like needs analysis on what is the most common injuries, what are the most common performance indicators, what kind of stuff that we look for each sport. And we do that for every person and be like, right, what weaknesses they got. Because as soon as someone starts the popular thing is running clubs and run clubs and stuff are really popular now, right? If they've gone from bodybuilding and they're going and doing running, cool. 5K is pretty achievable, I think, for most people. Everybody should, in my opinion. If you're a sporty person, not everybody in the world. If you're like goes to them, you should be able to drop a hat, probably run a 5K. If you're being chased by some people, I don't know, just to get away from people. And it will be the impact and contacts on their calves and their Achilles and their feet would be the main issue for most people.
It's interesting you said that though, so like because we did a Murph last week just for a bit of a laugh, just to see what.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Do. Yeah, we've filmed it, so we're going to put it up on YouTube. But it was just a bit of a challenge against each other. But I was saying to Jake, like my calves, the next 2 or 3 days after doing 2 1-mile runs, like separately as part of that challenge, were in absolute. I mean, admittedly, I did it in Converse, which wasn't a good idea, but but my calves were in absolute bits for days. They were just horrific.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. And I think, it's running and weightlifting, for example, they're different disciplines and they should be treated as different disciplines, right? You can't just get like a program off bodybuilding.com, which is going to make you strong and jacked, and then get a fucking running plan off Strava, right? And just think, I'm just going to do those 2 things. Like, you have to have a bit of an idea of, and if you're on that sliding scale, like I would probably class myself as a hybrid athlete if you wanted to go down that route, because I do running and I also go to the gym, but I treat them separately. And if I've got a half marathon in March, for example, so I'm on like a sliding scale where right now my volume is a little bit more towards running, a little bit dialed down on weights. But I just think people, they don't see that. They just think, right, we both at the same time get fucking jacked and running. I'm like, there has to be a bit of push and pull somewhere. Yeah.
Actually, like, if you look at just really anecdotally from my sessions, right? I'm only really in the gym once or twice a week now.
Yeah.
Just because of mileage elsewhere. But touch words, not had any issues whatsoever. And I've been training for the last 6 months for this stuff. And
but that's because you know what you're doing and you follow it.
but so the pre like limb of that is like I've always trained for power and like plyometrics and stuff like that. So I'm quite fast twitchy. So it's a weird thing going towards like long distance stuff for me. So I'm changing my ethos of how my genetic makeup is. But there'll be, or just muscular makeup. You can change it a little bit, not a lot. But then all of my the tendon strength and tendon health and elasticity has massively helped, hugely, because all the tendons. So when obviously like calves are getting fucking tight, like Jake said, like after those 2-mile runs, probably because your Achilles tendons or anything in the back off your calf hasn't had that kind of constant contacts of like tiny little loads, like lots, and then you suddenly go into doing something which running is inherently plyometric. People misuse that fucking term. The box jump, not plyometric, just everywhere. It's just not. It's like you have to have, it's like fast and slow plyometric under like 2.5 contact, like speed off the ground. So you have that elastic effect, right? So which running does. So people think that like, I just need to train, do some calf raises and stuff like that. Yeah, there's also purpose of like doing these like little pogo jumps and all these little spring jumps or bounds or hops and stuff like that. I think I got known for, like, you're doing little gay skips, Tom. Like, yeah, I am, cool, but like Usain Bolt's doing them, he's pretty good. So I'm gonna keep. Yeah. I'm like, he's like an absolute spring, so I'm gonna keep doing this stuff, which is just, yeah, it's like I would say that in your warm-ups just for running is probably enough for most people, but not doing it is not enough. Like spend 10-15 minutes doing like a reverse pogo to get away. So big one, shin splints. Cool. Yeah. Right. We can probably, instead of being like, I'm going to go and do the knees over toes guy, like strength training or whatever that is, which is popular in my world at the moment. Maybe doing some reverse pogo jumps just for 3 sets of like 20 meters at a time, probably get you there every single before you run. Yeah. Just to spark up something called your anterior tibialis, which is like your shin muscle, like stuff at the front, which is obviously a big thing when people start running. So I reckon, but it generally happens after like a month or two. You're like, I'm doing fantastically. And they're like, shit, I can feel my shins. They're like starting to get gassed. Yeah. So just from load more than anything else.
And I find that people just go balls to the wall as well. So like, again, without going into all the zones, like, people are just going out and trying to do PBs every single week on a 10K. And it's like, well, actually just spend some time building up your aerobic base and doing some slower pace, zone 2. And I hate using all the zones because I know it's fucking proper wanky to say it, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to be doing that stuff as well.
The misleading thing is that Strava zones are different to Garmin zones. So people are like, which one am I meant to be in? So Garmin zone 2, like 3 is actually a Strava zone 2. Who's the guy that's talked about it so much? I can't remember his name. Is it Professor what's his face? The Whoop guy.
Oh, no, I know what you mean. I can't fucking remember his name now, but I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah, I'm not where my Whoop is here.
I was going to say, what do you think of? I've not used a Whoop before, and I've not actually had clients that do. But what do you think of him? Decent?
No, because I'm not wearing it. This does everything this does and tells the time. So yeah. I'm like, I bought this, like, and it's a subscription. Annoying thing, subscription model. So spend whatever on this. Like I haven't got a fancy watch. Like this was 300 quid, right? Because I was like, I'm not spending 700 quid on my fucking, like, it probably should, but I'm just like, that's not happening. Subscription, like for a year, it's like 200 quid or something like that. And the app, awesome, right? Really cool, looks really good. Probably a little bit more detailed in the stuff you get. So your sleep tracking, it learns about you a little bit, your MRV and all this kind of fun stuff, or your zones and stuff. But you can't use it when you're working out, because for me to do zonal-based training when I'm working out, I have to have my phone open and look at my phone to know which zone I'm in.
Yeah.
That help me? If I'm out on a run, does it? Like, what the fuck? Why didn't put a fucking screen on it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I never even thought.
I'm like, for the key thing I want it for is heart rate based training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No. For the whole of life, cool. Don't need to have a little load. But Garmin does all of it. So I'm like,
do you have a heart rate monitor for your current training setup, or do you just go off your Garmin?
I go off my Garmin. I think people overcomplicated it.
Yeah.
Like, if you'll get a bunch of people who will be like, no, the heart rate monitor around your chest is so much more accurate. I'm like, don't give a shit. Like, this is more accurate than me, like, putting my fingers there and like counting. Cool. So yeah, I 100%
majoring in the environment a little bit. Yeah.
I'm just like, unless you are like, we're looking for the 1% or of like gains, cool. Other than that, I wouldn't worry. Get a cool Garmin. Like, there's plenty of them out there. I've just got the one that does. There's only 2 watches that do like full triathlon stuff. So I got the cheaper, because I'm a cheapskate apparently, cheaper model of that one. So yeah, I was just like, also the other one was massive. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not wearing that every day.
It's like a statement piece.
Exactly. And I was just like, I'll go for the subtle one, thank you. I was like, I don't need everybody to know exactly how many steps and what my heart rate is doing at every single moment. So,
Yeah, I guess that's what it always comes back down to, and it is just do the simple stuff well. Like, don't overcomplicate things. We were saying this on the podcast earlier on today, which was a bit more around nutrition side of things. Well, it is just do the simple things well. So I guess if someone came to you and was like, right, Tom, I want to get more athletic, what are 3 key things I should probably look to start with doing or focusing on? What would you say those are?
what are we defining athletic as?
I think more like from a general standpoint, someone just wants to be able to lift some shit, run a little bit, and just generally feel good. Do you know what I mean?
Well, number one, I know this is going to be sprinting or jumping. There's something shocking. Like, I don't know if you can Google it, but I've seen it a few times. Of like, it's if you're over the age of 30 or 25 or something like that, it's something mad. Like 80% of people who will never like sprint again, like in their lifetime. It's something mad, and it's just so easy as high intensity, max effort training. Like that will have an effect, like doing a I don't know, a 1RM kind of thing, lifting a big strength session. Sprinting is that for the general population. And it doesn't have to be sprinting running. It can be sprinting assault bike. Cool. Do a blowout for 10 seconds, like 4 times twice a week. I'm happy if you start doing that, because you're starting to wake up like sarcomeres, which then like lay down like intent and lay down power, and that's always going to be good. Probably, I've noticed this massively from people who come over from bodybuilding, is they're not able to accelerate and train or like push hard. They're able to push with a lot of torque, but they're not allowed to like push with a lot of impact. So their producing force isn't very high. Their peak force is low, which is an issue for sports. Peak force should be really... Chris Hoy produced a lot of fucking force. Can't produce it for a lot of time. So that would be probably number one. Sprint or jump. Add that in. Aerobic base, do not ignore it. It is fantastic. Because obviously there's this whole big thing of like cardio is going to kill your gains. Fucking doesn't.
No.
Probably elevates it. You can do more because
you're gonna be
You can recover quicker, you can train.
you can recover with it. Like blood oxidation is going to be better. You're all good. So, and I always used there was Kevin Carr, the lad who basically owns Mike Boy S&C now. Really cool guy. I had him on the podcast, and I was lucky enough to do like 2 weeks out there. And he was just like, if I get 2 athletes, they both follow the same like S&C program, awesome. Like they're both twins, whatever, both genetic makeup, but one does his zone 2 and like his ESD work, and the other one doesn't. I'm choosing that person every fucking day of the week. Like they are going to be better and like lifting within a month of that person. 100% happens. So that would be, do not neglect either your zone 2 or your short like impact ESD, which is cool. I think fucking ages ago on my YouTube channel, I did like a Tom in like a 10-minute explanation of like assault bike energy system development work. I think from across like anaerobic respiration, lactate capacity, really simple things to implement into people's programs. So anybody can watch that. If you're like confused about what I'm saying. And then last one, I'll go what I'm hot on right now is single limb training. So let's put that in. Shift your focus from just do it for a month of bin off any back squatting, bin off any deadlifting, literally just become one of those losers who does like a skater squat or like split squats. Okay, so I don't do a lot of back squatting with people pretty much ever, unless it's like quarter squats, or I call them a sports squat, and then people get annoyed with me because it looks like a half squat. I would start to do that kind of stuff. Oh, I haven't mentioned that. Velocity-based training is something I do a lot of with people. Or if I can, if they have a fucking iPhone. If they don't, then fuck them. They're not my clients. Only because the app I use that is only on iOS. So that's just like speed of intent of lifting. Because so a lot of people don't realize how quickly they lift, and there's a lot of people who either leave too much in the tank, so they'll bail out early of a set, when I can see based off their velocity they should be lifting more, or like there's another rep in there probably, or they, like we said, are already like CNS fatigued, and they're like, all right, we'll do like a jump or something like that. If they're not like jumping as high as they go, they can back off, and they do like a back off day, and they don't lift the same weights, so they're not as fatigued, so they get to recover. So yeah, That's a kind of like, that'd be the last tip. Listen to your fucking body. If it's not a go day, it's a no day, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like, that was Chris Toombs, one of my senseis for velocities-based training, came up with that phrase. He was like, if it's not a go day, it's a no day.
It's spot on though,
Love
to be
that.
fair. Like
Yeah.
we say the same thing to clients all the time with training. Like we'll get messages where like, oh, I went into the gym tonight and I didn't feel 100%, but I didn't quite do everything. Is that okay? And it's like, if you weren't feeling it,
Yeah.
you weren't feeling it. Like, listen to your body. Sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. You want that, like longevity of client success is what we want to preach,
Yeah.
right? We're not like UP and be like, all right, I'm going to kill you in 12 weeks and then fuck you off. So it's like, UP can come at me for that, it's fine. So, we want to build good behaviors and have people for a long time, and it like performance training, like bodybuilding, whatever fits into your lifestyle as a key aspect of you being healthy. That is literally, I'm sure all of us preach that. It's just like, that's what we want to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wicked.
Definitely. And the only last question we've got, mate, is what is one piece of advice you wish you knew sooner? It's pretty generic, to be fair. You can make it specific to whatever you want, but
Fucking hell, that's like in the PT world, in the fitness world, in the whatever.
what should we go with? Let's put it in the PT world, because we do get quite a lot of coaches watching this. So let's say from a coaching development point of view, what's one piece of advice you wish you knew?
Coaching development point of view, okay, 100%. Well, I don't know. This is like business building, or we can talk about it because
Go business building. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do a very small amount, obviously not on the biceps and banter scale. Obviously, I did it at the PTC. We did something called PTC coaching, where we took newish trainers and we built their business with them. So I do a little bit of mentoring because a lot of my clients are coaches.
Yeah.
And then I go, FYI, you can tap on a little bit of money and I will be your back pocket and we'll just bounce off each other the whole time. So from business building, I'll go one-to-one because there's fucking enough online advice from you, Bellens. So one-to-one, train in your fucking own gym that you work at. You don't realize the amount of people you talk to or share equipment with that you can offer advice to or just chat to. And just like you would strike up conversations online, like talk to fuckers, not about fitness. I have a rule of my third time you speak to someone, then you're allowed to talk about fitness or health or whatever. Do not talk about anything like that unless they bring it up. It's like a dating kind of rule, I guess. Don't talk about yourself.
It's a bit, because when I worked on the gym floor for a long time, and like all of my clients came through talking about football on a Monday morning and just fucking, what did you go to the weekend? And literally, and I didn't even realize at the time because I didn't have business development, I didn't have the PT code, I didn't have any of this stuff. But I was just a social human being, so I'd speak to people, and guess what? They became clients. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like
it's bonkers, isn't it? Like, they get to like you, and then they're like, you're the first person they reach out to. We're not then trying to sign up there and then. We're thinking 6 months down the line. Unfortunately, we'll have to get clients like a slightly harder way, but yeah. And then I guess on the gym floor, that's the kind of thing. I say training there because it's just probably good to actually train in the facility that you work at. Yeah, and then just be present. Me and Dan have preached this every single time. So me and Dan, we started at the same gym within 3 weeks of each other, and then we competed with each other. But we were there like 7 a.m. till 10 at night, right? Just because we were like, we wanted to make this work, and we were like, we'd just be there. And then we literally just sat and we also had that competition element of like trying to beat each other, right? And then we literally went from 60 sessions, 70 sessions, 80 sessions, 90 sessions, 100 sessions. I think we topped out like 120 to 130 a month. And then both were like, this is shit. And come back down to like 100. And then I went into management and was Dan's boss. Doesn't say that, does it?
It leaves that bit out.
He was in my team because he was, just be there. Like, be present. Don't be like, and just moan. Don't hide in the staff room. Like, go sit out if you're allowed out and about, and just be around. Go fix some equipment. Go do that kind of stuff. It all like helps because the next job you might be in, like that stuff might come up, and then you're like, oh, I know how to do that. I can do that. I can move that around. You're all good. Once you've reached a kind of a level, then you can be like, no, I don't need to do it. I'm that busy. But that'd be a big one for me. Just be present, be around, be a human.
100% agree. Just spot on.
My head, mate.
Spot on.
And where can people where can they find you, Tom? Is it Instagram predominantly? You've got YouTube as well.
I do have a YouTube, but I have been good on it and then bad on it. Essentially, it's basically you can track my YouTube stuff based off how busy I am. January, fucking non-existent. Apparently, I upload every podcast up there, but it's not about my YouTube. Isn't about views. It really is where I just post a lot of my exercise stuff. So it's my holding thing for when people come to coach me. And if there's something that's not on my apps that I need to do specifically, I'll put it up there in like a coaching term or stuff like that. So yeah, at Tom Hall Coach or at tomhall.coach on every platform.
Tomhall.coach.
You want to?
Yeah, I've just
correct. Yeah, I was like, is it? I've changed it a few times, so I was just like, is that what I've settled on? Because obviously, I work in the PTC. I had PTC on the end. Yeah, then Instagram's the main fucking thing. You can always message me if you need any advice on any training stuff. Yeah, you might get a voice note back, honestly, because I'm like, oh, I'd rather do that. This is basically.
I'm the same. I voice note 9 times out of 10. I just find it easier, and I think you can go into more details. It's more useful for people.
Like if I can do a minute of.
You get content.
Yeah, minute of a voice note. Some people hate it. I get that like I can't listen to it there and then. Yeah, they're like, oh fuck, I've got to put my headphones in so somebody's not just speaking at me. Like, but yeah, I feel like we're just of that generation who can do that. So it's a little podcast. It's nice.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed that.
Awesome. Basically, so these guys are going to come on my podcast as this was the return gig, and I've already mentioned it to Dan. It's going to be an hour of absolutely slating both of you. So
Looking forward to it.
So obviously, I'm just speaking at the people who are listening to this. Obviously, these guys are doing a great job. So they're going to come on my show, and we'll do a Dream Gym show, which we've done like usually when we do guests on, and it's just a little bit of fun. But we learn more about you two. So hop over to that, and obviously we'll share on both platforms or whatever. So, all good.
Amazing. Looking forward to it. Cheers, Tom.
Nice one, Tom.
Catch you in the next one, guys.